Jugopnik is recording. I almost said my real name. What? Jesus Christ.
I was gonna think, what's a good Albanian name? Damn it. You're lucky I'm blanking. You're lucky it's so
I am
late.
also blanking, funnily enough. I have one Albanian friend. His name is Noel, and he's now getting a kid. And
he's getting one? Like acquiring one, or he's having a child?
Yeah, Albanians only, like, they come into a Serbian village and they steal the child. That's how they get child.
But it's Albanian.
No. Jokes aside, no. He's a cool guy. But like I unironically like the potential names they're choosing. But I wouldn't have like the balls for the names, right? Like they're all like Roman names, like Constantin or Augustus, or
my God.
One was what was it? Yeah, like
it's
very
a bit LARPy, isn't it?
A bit, but it's also kind of ballsy.
Like you're Albanian, but you're Albanian. Like you pick an Illyrian name. What the fuck are you picking Roman for?
Oh yeah, and you know what the Albanian is gonna say to that.
Yeah,
that they founded Rome, and they're all Romans. And
yeah, exactly right. The Albanians are the people behind the fight. See how many Albanians are in the Senate? I don't know what to tell you. They're, I was gonna. Speaking of Albanian activities, I had a patient today, a young guy who came in very sick. Oh. And I'm like, all right, my guy, what did you do? And he's like, all right, so I was out and he was camping, some outdoor activity of some kind. And he got thirsty. So he decided to drink, what's it called? The metal railing that collects rain around a building. Yeah, a gutter, exactly right. Of some like industrial building.
Oh my God.
Or something.
Why?
Why would you do that?
I don't know. And then afterwards he had some food and he brought like ceramic plates with him for some reason. And he decided like, it's encrusted with food and shit. I don't know. So let me clean it. The way he decided to clean it was to put it underneath the gutter and then go to sleep wherever he was sleeping, and then come back to collect the stuff the next day, and it would be magically clean because the gutter water is running over it. And then afterwards, he ate off the same fucking plate and continued drinking the unfiltered gutter water. And unsurprisingly, he got very sick.
The single greatest podcast that you can absolutely never listen to while eating. That should be on our podcast gravestone if it one day dies. Like that is the amalgamation of this show.
Hey, it's better than the rest of us. So it's better than the guy who was shitting blood because they nicked the mesenteric. I told you about this. It's my favorite story to tell.
I have some news for Hakeem here, and I am betting inside of my head. There are two Jugopniks right now. If he will take it as good news or as bad news, while most realistically he'll take it as neutral news. So remember, I haven't smoked a cigarette since like November or October. I haven't touched those.
Yeah,
I switched to vapes, right, etc. A bit better, right? But the minus was that I would smoke at home, all the cliches that you hear, which I never did with cigarettes. But now I have not touched a vape in over a month, but instead I am doing the nicotine pouches, the little things.
Oh my God.
They're better than everything. Sure, they fuck up your gums a little bit, but I feel amazing. I can run so well now. I can jog so well now. In the gym, I'm performing much better. The nicotine high is so much nicer, so much cleaner. It lasts for so much longer. It is just an incredibly superior fucking product. I know I can get asshole cancer from it, and potentially very small chance, but still like some gut cancer shit. I have literally read it on stream. I have read an actual doctor's paper because my chat has been giving me shit.
Yeah,
but now I want to ask
everybody in Hugo's chat.
Yeah.
Please continue.
But no, I've changed it with this. So like it's a lesser evil, right? For people who have been smokers. What? No.
All right, lesser evil. These are such relative questions. The best thing is to completely eliminate it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Here's the thing. Are they tobacco or just the straight nicotine pouches?
Straight nicotine pouches.
Straight nicotine are better than the tobacco ones because tobacco ones cause more damage.
Yeah,
Regardless,
it sound like I'm from
ones,
JT's fucking state. I ain't fucking chewing tobacco. Jesus Christ.
But I don't know, man. People are fucking. Isn't it a thing? Isn't it a thing that's? I don't remember. I remember reading this shit about the US recently getting some European export. I don't fucking know.
The Zin, oh my God, the boomers and shots, Jesus Christ. And I go and the Zins, like everything started from the Zins. Obviously everything started from Scandinavian countries, then Zin really popularized it, became a huge fucking brand, etc. Even Tucker Carlson says that his dick gets hard when he takes a Zin. But I expect, this is the OG bougie product, like this is the Gucci, this is whatever, and I go to the States and I finally try some Zins, and their strongest one is 6 milligrams and the weakest one is 3 milligrams. And on the European ones, they don't really write anything, right? So I never thought about the milligrams. I come back and I'm on this party last Friday, on a birthday party, and I get like a nicotine withdrawal, and one guy who wasn't drinking drives me to a 24-hour store. I go inside and there's this 18-year-old Zoomer just chilling there, and I'm like, yo, are these your nicotine pouches? He's like, yeah. And here there's like 50 fucking brands, right? And some of them are very unhinged, like it's called Killer and it's got like skulls on it. Well, Zyn is a very clean product, right? And I'm like, okay, which ones are 3 milligrams and which are 6 milligrams? He looks me straight in the face. He's like, 3 milligrams? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, just came back from the States. The weak ones are 3 milligrams, the strong ones are 6 milligrams. He's like, dude, I would not survive there. You have these are 6 milligrams, and he points at a single one, and he's like, that's our weakest one. This is 20, this is 30, this is 50, this is 70. They had 70 milligram ones. There's 10 times the fucking strength, okay? Balkan built different, motherfucker.
Balkan built different. I don't want to be on the road with anybody who's doing that. They either tweaked out of their mind or they're immediately in withdrawal.
No. I unironically agree with you. I don't think you should drive with your first Zyn, your first nicotine pouch, because like it really fucking hits you. Like it's 50% drunk with that shit. It's quite weird. But again, I've never felt better. But then again, my gums will probably pay that toll eventually. So yeah. So you're telling me stop, basically, yes. Which you're a doctor.
Look.
Course, yeah.
Yeah, like I cannot recommend it in good faith.
Of course not. I'm not recommending it either.
What I can say is that it's much better than smoking, at the very least, and it's better than the ones that contain tobacco. But I'm trying to look at these different, like the best thing for you is just to get nicotine, what's it called, like replacement, the gums or the patches or whatever, and then slowly wean yourself off of the dependency. Hold on.
While Hakeem is looking for the Zins thing, Yugopnik, did you hear this new study about alcohol, how it can, or 1 or 2 drinks per night can reduce your lifespan by up to 2 months? And everybody,
that is a deal
I'll
that I am.
Deal.
I'll take that deal. I'll take that fucking deal. It had a part where it said for ultra heavy drinkers, we drink 35 fucking drinks a week, 35 units. Woo. Okay, I don't think I even drink 35 units a week. You lose up to 2 years of life. I take that deal. 2 years, 2 of the last years of my fucking life with those annoying fucking grandchildren versus getting buzzed out of my mind with the bros. Jesus Christ, I'm taking that deal immediately, dude. That was like, yeah, bro.
The quality of life you're gonna live. Oh my god. Look, I did some quick NCBIing. The general like trend seems to be that the pouch uptake is kind of mostly limited to people who used to smoke before. So it's kind of used as replacement for smoking, which is very good. Youth uptake is not very high, which is also good. And the research so far is limited, but nicotine can have an aggravating effect, but not directly carcinogenic effect.
Woo!
Meaning it can kind of like increase the propensity or development of certain cancers, but it doesn't directly cause it. So you need to have something else.
Perfectly safe.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a far big jump.
Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Deprogram. I feel like this is the first in a while that all 3 of us have been on. I had some family issues come up, so that I apologize for not being on the last one. I hope you had a lovely time with my 2 beautiful boys. I heard they crept out of the basement on their own and made a podcast episode. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. But now that I'm back, we've gotten a lot of requests to talk about Project 2025. This is the new conservative manifesto full of all the hits, such as exterminate everybody who's not white. So here you go. We're going to run through it. We've broken this down into 3 parts. I've got the first section where I will give you an overview of the document, the policy goals, stuff like that. Yugopnik will compare what is in Project 2025 to other fascisms, past fascisms, and whether this counts. And then Hakeem will wrap it up with the road ahead. What happens if Trump wins? What happens if Biden wins? Etc. So let me jump right in for you. What is it? Spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 is a massive 920-page conservative manifesto detailing how they intend to give the president vastly more power, destroy bureaucracy, root out woke propaganda, appoint vetted far-right freedom fighters at every level of government, and have all of this ready to implement the day the next conservative president is elected, which they assume will be 2025, hence the name. Despite Trump obviously being the favorite, especially after his new banger photo, the photographer's like looking down at that. He's simultaneously thrilled that he took an amazing photo and he's going to get paid a lot of money for it, but he's also like, man, this makes a really shitty person look really cool.
Yeah, like I am become death,
Yeah, it's like the Oppenheimer thing. Yeah. What have I created? Yeah. Anyway, Trump is the favorite. People assume Trump is the linchpin of 2025. This plan is actually not dependent on any particular candidate winning. It can be implemented with any figurehead at the reins, and that figurehead will become essentially completely unaccountable, or at least that is the goal. God Emperor was supposed to be a joke, but here we are. You may have seen their book floating around online. Some of the conservative figures were shilling it. It's called The Mandate for Leadership. It's a fairly thin book. It's not the whole document. And that's what most people assume Project 2025 is, but that's actually just one part of a much larger conservative master plan. The project has 4 core pillars. Number 1 is the policy, as outlined in the 920-page document. This is where all the really gross, heinous, frankly, disturbing policy proposals live, and I will look at some of those in a little bit. Number 2 is the personnel database, which has been described as the conservative LinkedIn, as if LinkedIn wasn't cringe enough already. This will be a repository for conservative resumes from people across all sectors and from all walks of life to be selected as needed to staff positions in every level of government at both the federal and state level. Number 3 is training.
Like, what will they write there? Oh, I really hate the gays. And the other guy's like, I hate the gays.
You're
8
hired.
out of 10. You hate the gays. 7 out of 10. They will hire me. God fucking damn it.
Have you ever had a male friend? It's a little gay. We're gonna go with the other guy who's never had a male friend.
Yeah, like I am against trans women going into women's bathrooms. The other guy is like, I'm against women in general having fucking bathrooms. They shit on the fucking street.
Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. Like, I would love to see, once this goes live, I would absolutely love to see, if it's open to the public, what these resumes look like, how they sell themselves. Like, I want to see their cover letters. But pillar number 3 is training. They've got a new online institute. It's basically PragerU, but for people who like to wear poorly tailored suits and fantasize about rolling back environmental regulations. This training program will create willing and able soldiers to serve on the front lines in the war against the woke cabal of the deep state.
What, they're gonna run to the McDonald's and back home? Is that the pathway?
I'd love to know again what their requirements are to be trained for these positions. If all they're gonna do is like just repeal stuff. Like, what kind of training do you need for that? Like, look at Trump as an example. We're the best. Everything is the best it's ever been. Everybody else is the worst it's ever been. Like, that doesn't require much training, but we shall see. And finally, pillar number 4, the 180-day playbook. This is a step-by-step guide for the new conservative emperor to systematically implement the policies listed in the manifesto. These 4 pillars are the key components of Project 2025, and taken together, they offer a pretty comprehensive vision for the dystopian future the right hopes to usher in. This is all pretty alarming, but where exactly does this come from? Let's take a look at a few of the names behind this project. So there is a free PDF online. I don't know if it originally started out free, but someone has uploaded, and you can get that, because let's be honest, we're not about to give the Heritage Foundation $35 for their hardcover version. But if you look through the list of names, you'll find a bunch of far-right think tanks, advisory groups, and business and government figures who contributed to the project. Some of the names include Donald Devine, once called by the Washington Post Reagan's terrible swift sword of the civil service.
He sounds like a porn star. His name is Donald Devine, you said?
Yeah. Spelled differently, but yeah. Yeah, Dirk Diggler. Yeah.
These are made up. Fuck you. You made that one up.
Yeah, that's from a movie.
Dick Hamlet.
But he was called the Reagan's terrible swift sword of the civil service because of his eagerness to slash spending and fire people. You had Stephen Moore, the well-known conservative author and right-wing economist, with such credentials as working for the very legitimate Freedom Works and serving as a Fox News contributor. Then you've got Peter Navarro, who is notable for being one of just 3 people who worked with Trump for the duration of his term without being fired. He's also a little bit obsessed with China. He's written 3 truly awful books on the subject. There was The Coming China Wars, Death by China,
Okay, well.
and Crouching Tiger.
Oh my
Fuck
god.
off.
That's my favorite.
Isn't it a
Read that one.
panda? Don't they call it a panda or something? Or a
Yeah.
dragon? Or a dragon? I never heard a tiger yet, but okay.
No,
but they,
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's the meme, right?
That's the
Oh
movie,
shit!
yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
Look at
too young
you,
for that joke.
Yellow
Neophyte.
skin, slant eyes. Or something is his next book.
Yeah. God. Hakeem, ever since you mentioned doing a dramatic reading of that one fascist book that's been in my head, I was like, oh, we got to do it. We got to do voices
absolutely.
for all of them and everything.
Absolutely.
We can do Crouching Tiger for our next reading.
There we go.
Anyway, the manifesto credits 35 total authors, as well as dozens of contributors, all with their credentials listed. And it's about what you'd expect. You have a lot of people from the Heritage Foundation, some military goons, a smattering of former Trump officials, some extreme economists, and a considerable number of people who have worked in climate, energy, immigration, and legal positions under conservative governments.
The Avengers, but for American decline.
Yeah, it's like playing the Avengers on like a recorder when these guys show up. What you won't see a lot of in the acknowledgments is religious credentials, which you'd think would be kind of important given how much the document leans on Christian language, right? And this should be your first indication that maybe the people who loudly proclaim their faith aren't really all that Christian, and they're just using it to win brownie points among their religious conservative audience. There's actually a lot of overlap here with the topic I did in one of my past videos, like maybe, when was this? Maybe a year ago, on Christian nationalism. These people use religious rhetoric, but a little bit of digging reveals that the God they pray to is not the God of the Bible, but a mythologized version of America itself.
American civic religion, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so perverted these days. Like, my wife is Christian, and she's from Zimbabwe, and it looks completely different than someone who's been raised in the United States, like what their faith looks like. It's shocking when you compare the two.
No, it's just like a slight dog whistle because they are
Right.
they are readapting to what they want to call their audience, whose quote unquote ways of life they are protecting. And just like back in the day, as we talked actually in one of our episodes on fascism, for example, British right wing extremism once being openly anti-Semitic or openly racist towards Caribbean black people in the UK, they refocused towards Islamophobia because at that point, and to this day, unfortunately, it was much more acceptable. Same thing because you cannot garner massive support without sounding completely unhinged by talking specifically about the Mexicans or the blacks, etc., etc. You need to and them derailing the white way of life or the American white man's future and so on, manifest destiny, etc., etc. You kind of recalibrate the type of audience that you want to introduce to reactionary mentality, and just talking about an extremely wide concept such as all the Christians of the United States and the Christian way of life on which America has been built becomes the new kind of go-to mechanism. Funny enough, literally listen to Tucker's speech right after the Trump assassination, and he always is kind of the first guy who proposes the direction that they're going to go into, and it all revolved around, he literally is saying this is no longer a political question, this is he moves into like some weird fucking like metaphysics for idiots. Like there's just evil and there's just good, and the evil ones wanna kill the good ones, and the good ones are Christians, and we must protect the Christians because the evil ones are coming for the Christians. The first thing the Bolsheviks did was shoot a Jesus statue. Okay, we must protect the Christian way of life. I'm kind of quoting, but I'm literally quoting. That's exactly what the dude said. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that's very, very nice kind of, to an extent, non-demographic that you can splurt out all the Christians that a lot of people can identify with without feeling excluded, as you preach about protecting their way of life without sounding too, old school fascist by talking about race, ethnicity, and so on.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And much like fascists throughout history have relied on a glorious false past to act as a North Star to guide them into the promised land, so too have American fascists wrapped themselves in comforting mythology, proving that what they are doing is not only just, but divinely inspired.
Exactly.
Like what it boils down to is when you have a higher power on your side, it is very easy to justify all of the things that you find in this very long document. Okay, with the brains behind the project out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly do these people want? People, because you hear, Project 2025, so bad. Okay, what is it? What's their end goal? There are 4 main priorities. In their words, they want to, 1, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. 2, dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats, like we're pirates or something. And 4, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty.
There you go, a bunch of non-terms, like that means nothing.
Yeah,
but that's the
incredibly
point.
Vague.
But that's exactly the point, because so many people can identify with it. Nobody knows what it means, and more importantly, you can generalize a so-called enemy a lot more because they're coming for this, and that. If you specify, then people literally are like, where's the fucking citation, bro? But if you're talking about the destruction of our liberties, then like you just, you're talking about fucking fairy dust, right? It's nobody can tell you wrong.
It's like the war on terror thing, right? That can be expanded indefinitely. For it's been going on for 30 years or something like that. So it's the same kind of stuff here. Leave it open-ended, and you can always tack on new pet projects. Okay, you can probably already see where some of this is going based on their rhetoric there, but we're going to start with the boring stuff, the nuts and bolts of manipulating the federal government to serve the right. A lot of this project centers around gutting what's called the administrative state. This is stuff like the EPA, FEMA, HUD, the Fed, stuff like that. The humdrum logistical stuff that often plays an important role. Or, sometimes not. There's the DHS looking at you. There is a lot of this stuff, so much that it's often called the fourth branch of government, and it deals with the day-to-day operations of the country. So everything from transportation to environmental regulations, food and water safety, stuff like that. Most of these agencies are created when a law is passed that makes people think, there really should be a group responsible for making sure food is safe for consumption, or whatever. The government slaps together an elite team of nerds, that is to say subject matter experts, people who actually know what they're talking about, and there you go, you've got the FDA, or whatever other group. The FDA then takes over the task of enforcing whatever regulations they come up with in administrative courts. So, all very boring technical stuff, but all you need to know is that a lot fewer people die because the FDA exists, and we have fewer polluted rivers and extinct species because the EPA exists. Conservatives don't like rules in general, especially rules that protect the environment or poor people, so to them, these agencies are a threat. They need to go. They're stepping on our liberties or whatever. It's not good enough that the president can appoint the heads of these admin agencies, for example, Trump appointing a fossil fuel executive to head the EPA. No, conservatives want complete power over everyone in these agencies. Because right now, the subject matter experts at, say, the EPA are not beholden to politics. They just come to work and try to figure out how best to protect snails or something, whatever they do at the EPA. Much of the argument here centers around whether these agencies are constitutional. conservatives like to claim that since the Constitution didn't explicitly say federal agencies like these were part of their master plan, they're government overreach and should be dismantled, which is, oh my God.
The Constitution didn't stipulate that my wife has to finish. Meaning.
Exactly. I mean, that's what these people think like. It's these literalists. It's anyway.
They're not literally. This is all. I get where you're coming from, but all this is this is intentionally done. Just like when you said, like, for example, they don't like rules. Of course, everybody knows what you mean. They love rules when it suits them,
when it benefits them. Yeah,
exactly. Same thing with this shit. They're sticklers for it. But if, for example, in the Constitution specifically said, like the fucking that piece of paper even matters, but you know what I mean. Even if it specifically said something. They would find ways around or through it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Historically, federal courts have disagreed with the assessment that these agencies are overreach. So until now, we've been able to rest assured that our milk has been pasteurized and our water isn't contaminated with lead. But here's the thing about the whole constitutionality argument. It's kind of what you were saying, Hakeem, right? It's who cares? Who cares about the Constitution? Most countries around the world scrap their constitutions entirely when people decide they're no longer relevant or they need to be overhauled. Only the United States really has this weird reverence for the Constitution and the Founding Fathers. All right, what else is there, though? It's 920 pages. They've got to have some other ideas besides get rid of the EPA. Well, a lot of it is what you might expect. As Trump stated on numerous occasions, they want to kick the cultural Marxists out of the Department of Education, demolish the deep state, and combat woke ideology at all levels of government. They plan to do this by making extensive use of what's called Schedule F, which is a piece of legislation established at the federal level by Trump, which allows the president to fire federal government officials at will, presumably for not sufficiently bending the knee or not being a big, beautiful, strong man enough. Did you hear what he said about J.D. Vance? He picked this is the hillbilly elegy guy that he picked as his running mate, and he was being asked about why he picked him and stuff, and Trump just kept going back to he's got these beautiful blue eyes. He said that like 6 times in the interview. It's so funny.
He used to not like me, but then he met me, and now he loves me. Everybody loves me when they meet me.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's such
At least
a shame.
he's funny.
It's such a shame he's a reactionary and he's running for president. And he's also a billionaire. Like, if he wasn't any of these things, I bet he'd be a chill dude to hang out with, I bet.
He could have a great stand-up tour.
He genuinely, oh my God. Oh, fuck.
Anyway, the project calls for an executive branch with essentially unchecked power, which would make the president basically unaccountable to Congress. They want to dismantle the liberal system to build one more favorable to conservatives. That means scrapping environmental protections, moving away from globalism, punishing corporations for DEI language, which is hilarious to me because it sounds like they actually think these corporations genuinely believe the DEI statements, which is so stupid. And it may just be pandering to their base. They're like, oh, DEI, there's a black woman in here.
That is the problem with corporations, as we all know, Not 100 of them causing like over 70% of all pollution. No. It is a black woman in office.
They also want to escalate tensions with China by ending economic engagement entirely. They want to crack down on immigration. They want to criminalize LGBTQ expression. They also,
Just jump in here. This is such a thing that doesn't make sense with these ideas. I mean, okay, no, it does make sense, and I'll mention why in a second. But in the grand scheme of things, the two things that have allowed for the greatest economic potential and growth of the United States generally are the net immigration the U.S. gets, particularly high-skilled labor from other countries, so brain gain, number one, and number two, incredibly low-skilled, cheap labor for all other industry that the United States runs, particularly in the agricultural sector. These two things are incredibly important for the economy. They want to kind of cut off both of these, especially since the cooperation between Chinese academia and the United States, American academia, is so high, at least in the form of Chinese PhD students and whatnot, which they want to cut off entirely. So they want to destroy. And the second thing is access to Chinese markets and cheaper Chinese labor and all that kind of stuff, which, again, is one of the reasons that the United States has been able to grow, and the entire rest of the imperial core has been able to grow. And they want to cut that shit off too, along with the tariff bullshit that the rest of the world isn't putting in place, meaning they're only making things more expensive for Americans, but not other industry that's competing also with American industry. How stupid can you end up being? But I get it. They're short-sighted interests of a local bourgeois elements want, for example, to cut off competition from the Chinese and have domestic production because temporarily they'll see higher profits. Amongst other reasons. Like, there are material reasons for it, but anybody who zooms out and just thinks a little bit about it will look past the fucking 3-4 quarters ahead and see that this is not good for the country as a whole.
Who wants to think 3 or 4 quarters ahead?
Also, you forget, yes, sure, the H&M t-shirts will cost a lot more now, but on the H&M t-shirts, there will only be white babies.
That sounds like a win to me.
Yeah, brother.
Golly, yeah. But back to the LGBTQ thing, they want to criminalize any expression of that sort. They also claim that any talk of gender identity, and so on is, quote, pornography, should be banned, and has no First Amendment protections. They want to scrap labor discrimination policies and, quote, maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of family, meaning scrap protections for same-sex marriage, and plan to, quote, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, unless, of course, you're one of the aforementioned groups they intend to criminalize out of existence. You'll note that a lot of this stuff is inherently contradictory, but of course that doesn't matter.
But okay, do they get to jerk off? Do we get to like beat the shit out of them if they cheat on their wife? Those biblical aspects, I don't think they would approve of, eh?
No, yeah, I mean, these people aren't Christians. These people
of course,
fucking, they put on the. They put on this fucked up veneer just to kind of like, some 86-year-old lady in Wisconsin or something that has never left her little village, right? Just so that she can be like, oh, well, they're on the side of whatever Christ, so she's gonna go vote for them. That's tiring.
Yeah, it's a perfect large net. It's a perfect large net. It works because nobody knows what it means. Not to repeat ourselves,
exactly.
But yeah.
And in that vein, to touch very briefly on their views of pornography. If you read the text, they basically just mean any discussion of gender, abortion, or any identity other than straight and cisgender. They want all instances of this kind of language to be stripped from society. It's a little cliche to compare the conservatives to Nazis, but as we all know, the first books to be burned by the Nazis and the first institutions to be shuttered were books on gender and sexuality and stuff like that, and the institutions that studied those topics.
Hold on, the greatest repositories of these materials, in particular LGBT pornography, will remain in the glorified Library of Alexandria, which is whatever computers conservative senators have with them at all times. So they'll still be there.
Well, yeah, there's a whole lot of projection going on. Now, the key to this whole plan is to lean on what's called unitary executive theory, which dates back to the devil himself, Ronald Reagan. Basically, this political theory suggests that maybe having 3 separate but equal branches of government isn't a good idea, and that instead the executive branch should dominate the relationship. Reagan's team came up with this notion to help facilitate deregulation, and it just kind of stuck.
Oh wow! You're telling me that the what's it called, the founding element of liberal governance was completely overridden for the interests of capital?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Wow!
A surprise!
And this is also an expression of liberalism. Wow! Oh my God! Fucking I'm hogging. Whoa!
If only people had literally been saying exactly this for many, many, many years.
If only Lucerno had a great book on this. What was it called again? Sorry, go on.
But anyway, each president since this is not a Reagan thing, right? I mean, Reagan started it, but this is not just a Reagan thing, is what we're saying here. Every president since Reagan has made use of this theory to wield just a little bit more power than they probably should be able to. Bush Jr. justifying his invasion of Iraq, Obama justifying widespread U.S. troop deployment overseas, Trump's Muslim ban, and so on. Now, the Project 2025 ghouls want to make sure that the president has essentially unchecked power, that Congress cannot prevent the president from doing what they want to do, however heinous their pet projects may be. And that is the key part of this. None of Project 2025 is technically illegal or requires outright seizure of government control. As we've seen many times before, when the Republicans do something that's mind-bogglingly shitty but technically legal, the Democrats will not do anything to stop them. And it's going to be the same story with Project 2025. Now I will turn the mic over to my esteemed colleague Ugopnik to dissect whether this actually counts as fascism and how it compares to past far-right policies around the world.
In my calculations, it calculates as 23.77% fascism, 54.5% liberalism, and 12% communism, because we all know less gay people equals more communist, and the less gay the more the government controls the gay people, the more communist it is. But no.
I love the Slavic translation. Yeah, too. You're so cute, baby.
I'm sorry.
That's such a second language, English second language.
Yeah, you got it there, brother. But yeah, like the fascism test is a fun little game to play when talking about, classic, in this case, I don't know, European liberal democracies, usually the small states, places like Slovenia or Italy or Portugal, just to pick something completely random. States with relatively milquetoast, long-term political establishments which are led by whatever the big mainstream notion for normal governance dictates at that time. Some are a bit more or less progressive on this or that social or economic issue. So the rise of a radical right-wing party, not just as an occurrence, but as an influential political power, would understandably raise concern over whether a complete overhaul of that republic is imminent or not. Is fascism coming, etc., etc. The U.S. in this regard is, in my opinion, a bit different, because one of its main political structures, one of the only two which matter, has played the role of the greatest beacon of reactionary, hypernationalist, and backwards thinking in pretty much the last 70 to 80 years. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the so-called fascist project for the United States is not something new, something that's attempting to infiltrate the current American political mainstream. No, it's a core feature of the system. The modern Republican Party has consistently played the role of the right wing of American politics. The only political option of the country as class, as we all know, is the only ultimate American political taboo. Now, things can always get worse, yes, and obsession with hyper-hierarchy, higher militarization of the state against its domestic populace, increase in foreign imperialist intervention, and a call for return to some fictitious, better, traditional, in this case, Christian past, while all being, as I said, core features of the American system, can very much so be intensified as the country plunges deeper into one crisis or another. That is exactly what the self-described purpose of the Republican Party is: a literal politician for hire dispensary for the more unhinged but also more realistic shareholders of American corporate wealth. I say realistic because they know shit will hit the fan, while Democratic support usually comes from the step over the homeless, don't shoot them segment of the American financial establishment. As such, the Republican Party has been playing out various versions of Project 2025 in 2024 and 23, 22, 06, 05, and so on, encouraging a system they've already placated to further right-wing radicalization, to, so to say, do it faster. So how does this compare to so-called fascisms of the past? Well, in my opinion, it's kind of apples and oranges, and it kind of doesn't. The mere presence of the Republican Party, not to mention America's colonial history, de facto make it a state which is continually driving towards further reactionary solutions to existing systematic problems. Any attempt to address the innate contradictions of America, from racial relations to its colonial past, through truly progressive or class-conscious means, would be counterthetical to America's very existence. Said plainly, most states fall into fascist fervor at times when capital is questioned or when the system begins to crash. In America, slowly dripping fascist fervor into the mouths of its populace is the norm and has been the norm. And while sure, it's a far cry from Nazi Germany, at least domestically, America is one of the only places in the world where the threat of fascism is a mainstream political tool, literally filling over 50% of the seats in Congress, exemplified, as we said before, by both parties, but especially the Republicans. You have fascists in government. You have brown shirts on the ground. You have racial segregation. You have the unquestioning rule of state and capital. America doesn't need old school fascism, for it's invented a far superior model. Now, this fact is obviously often used by the other side of the similar coin, the Democrats, to somehow pitch themselves as something far greater. And for that, I'll let my favorite hater address and take it from here. Hakeem?
Habibi. All right. I'm gonna give like a quick TLDR, and that's no. On the question is, what happens if Trump wins? Is it gonna will Prod 2025 spark fascist pogroms? If Biden wins, will the U.S. be safe from fascism? All these are like very loaded questions, but the TLDR is no. Anybody who follows this Trump means fascism rhetoric really just suits. Like, this only suits impotent liberals who love the 4 years away from fascism, that kind of rhetoric, that bullshit, to justify voting blue no matter who, regardless of the actual content or party programs, if there is a party program, but you know what I mean. The reality of fascism is that fascism is never voted in. It's physically imposed. Everything that particular crowd, the blue no matter who crowd, pretends to fear, for example, international wars, favors to the ruling class like tax cuts and deregulation of industry, for example, neutral climate action, taking away minority rights or abortion rights, or LGBT rights, border hysteria, crackdowns on protesting and activism, etc. All this kind of stuff that these impotent liberals love to clamor about, they've been undone or under attack or scrutinized underneath Biden's Democratic majority in the very beginning of his tenure as a president, and every other Democrat before him as well. This weird idea as if like the Republicans are really bad and the Democrats are like, they're bad but they're slightly better, which is I guess a well-meaning liberal might say that, but most of them are not well-meaning. They're just like, oh no, the Republicans are the worst thing and Democrats are basically they're gonna save the nation. I don't know what the fuck, right? This is all very privileged thinking. Now, what do I mean by this? I'm giving my background as a recipient of American imperialism. I'm not American, alhamdulillah. This idea that all of a sudden the United States might turn fascist. The United States has always loved fascist policy and violence abroad, and of course towards its internal peripheries. But now, only when it becomes a potential, or when there's potential, will be turned inwards towards the white population, which is unacceptable, of course, to the liberal mind. Then all of a sudden, oh no, this is fascism is going to come to the United States. Look, fascism in the U.S. is American policy abroad turned inwards, right? These same liberals that seem to hate Republicans so much and want to, do whatever they can to make sure Trump doesn't win, they're usually seemingly perfectly fine with either Democrat or Republican policy abroad. Assassinations, cooing, invasions, all the shit that the United States does abroad, they have absolutely no issue with, even when it's targeting American citizens, like it did in Yemen a few years ago. Regardless, when it comes to Project 2025 specifically, this is a continuation of decades of policy by Republicans and even some Democrats, really, which, at the end of the day, Democrats, despite having controlled the necessary seats of power for decades, at least on paper, have done nothing tangible to affect or prevent it. And that's kind of the point. If you're really so set on this nonsense of, just the Democrats are going to prevent it, Project 2025, oh my God, 4 more years of, or like we're months away from fascism if the Democrats don't win. Don't you realize that if voting, and specifically voting for the Democrats, was so effective, we wouldn't have come nearly as close to this point? This is the disconnect I'm really trying to put forth here. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but they really don't understand this, right? If you look at it, the past 30 years or whatever the fuck, I think Democrats have either been in power just as much as the Republicans or slight majority. I don't remember exactly. But regardless, if this is a fact, then how is it that this continues to happen? We keep inching closer and closer, quote unquote, to this, what they claim to be fascism. The disconnect there really needs to be corrected, I say. But what tangible is there, if you were to think about this really, to make it more concrete, what tangible difference is there for Black or Native people, for example, compared with the past century of Democrat and Republican policy? If Project 2025 were to come into effect, an African American in a underserved, quote unquote, and underprivileged, quote unquote, community won't notice that much of a difference if he were dropped in 1975 or now, really, right? Aside, like, particularly in the ways of institutional racism, some things have gotten slightly better, but on the scale of the United States and the shit that they preach on an international stage, this is essentially no difference at all. And when it comes to Trump particularly, he's a manifestation of certain ruling class interests. I kind of alluded to this earlier, just like Biden is, by the way. They just serve different sectors of the ruling class. What they disagree on is which sectors of the ruling class they serve. But otherwise, they're both, like faces. I think Biden is the clearest example. Like, I don't know how blatant you need to have the concept of a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie in front of your face aside of Biden. The guy turns around and shakes hands with the air and then walks off. Like, how blatant do you need to see that this guy is not in charge of anything? He's not doing anything. He's just a fucking face. Oh my god! And by the way, this was like a year ago. This guy's steadily declining. Not like Trump's any better, by the way. But I'm just saying, when you have a literal dementia patient as a potential presidential candidate, when will you make the jump to realizing, oh hey, maybe voting doesn't actually fucking influence the people who end up ruling over me? Anyways. What I was saying is, Trump and Biden both are manifestations of certain ruling class interests. Like various examples, healthcare questions in the U.S. usually fall to the power of various lobbies, pharmaceutical versus insurance, etc. I believe there's even a, like old people home lobby in the United States. Very fucked up. There's prison lobbies in the U.S. What fucking country do you live in, man? When it comes to foreign policy and war, these things are dictated or governed by personal stake. Or lobbying in oil or weapons industry. Fossil fuel lobbying affects climate policy, for example, particularly in regards to jobs rhetoric. Oh, we're bringing the coal workers back, what the fuck? As well as the influence of fossil fuel versus renewable energy lobbying. There's also that segment. This is more evident, I think, in Europe, where there are green parties in many European countries which are completely against nuclear energy for no fucking reason, instead really harping on solar and other things, because guess who stands behind, which ruling interests stand behind these particular policies, etc. Deregulation, tax cuts, all this kind of stuff will be sped up under the Trump presidency. But Biden really didn't do anything to reverse it. In fact, he did the opposite. He kind of just moved stuff around. All the social policy stuff is more, and this is a bit of a controversial take, but all the social policy stuff is culture war stuff, more evidently, in my opinion, usually to distract from like the economic side, like to divert from the class war, but also, of course, to appease a certain conservative voting base. They're kind of hitting both there, right? And you kind of notice this because the overwhelming discussion, I've noticed at the very least, has been about LGBT issues regarding Project 2025. Now, that's not particularly bad. It's okay to concern yourself with these issues. They're important issues, but climate change stuff, international relations stuff, economic stuff will have a much larger impact on a much larger group of people. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about the LGBT segment. Everything should be weighed similarly, of course. But I'm just saying the rhetoric has so heavily shifted to that segment, and I think that's by design, because they know that it's a fucking 1,000-page, it's a tome, it's not even a book. There's volumes of bullshit, right? The amount of people who will look through this and not really go past just the social criticism veneer, right? And keep the discussion kind of bogged down in this segment.
It's a very useful carrot for the American,
you go.
Right?
Thank you.
It's a very useful carrot because they know that's going to whip their base into a frenzy.
Yeah.
And that, and then seeing that the conservatives whipped into a frenzy will rightly scare people who are not, white, straight males. And that's what the conversation becomes, which is, like you're saying, that is a critical part of it. But also, that means the Republicans get to sit back and wipe their brow and be like, sure is a good thing they ain't talking about this part of it.
Exactly, exactly right. Good thing they're not talking about the deregulation, the bullshit with China, different international relation stuff, industry affecting stuff, climate change stuff. Good thing they're not talking about this. Instead, they're talking about abortion rights and other, which are also,
fucked regardless. Under Biden
also,
or Trump.
And also very important. Finally, about this thing, this kind of goes both ways, the social question, because the conservative base that will be appeased by the fact that all this stuff is being passed will also be distracted from the quote-unquote more important quote-unquote things that directly affect their life, which is the economic segment. Inflation will continue to get worse. Job opportunities in the United States will most likely not get better. The difference between, efficiency at work, the disconnect between efficiency at work and wages, particularly real wages, will continue to divert. It's not going to get better. When it comes to property prices and being able to buy a home, rent, grocery, all this kind of stuff will only continue to get worse. But this base will be appeased by the fact that, I don't know, abortion is more difficult to get than, for example. And that will kind of dominate the discussion. Which is, by the way, a tale as old as time. Moving on from this particular segment, the immediate effects, I think, of this stuff of the Project 2025 nonsense is there will be most likely crackdowns on protesting and the increase of police in general. We've already kind of seen this before that when Trump, the fucking bullshit, if you want to believe it's an assassination attempt or not on Trump, Biden immediately came out and started blaming like the Palestine campus activists for some reason.
God, that was so stupid.
Yeah. But this is their excuse. They're going to go after protesting through this, right? And activism. You're going to see an increase of police in general. They're going to start treating the entire U.S. most likely as a police minority ghetto, which this is a kind of a work in progress ever since, ever since the turn of the millennium, really. The reason I say this is because the U.S. has had at least 10 Tiananmen Square-like events these past 30 years. Of course, none of them get the same propagandistic bullshit that China got, of course. But the United States has had arguably bigger movements, and several of them, these past 20, 30 years. And gradually they're becoming better organized and with more radicalizing potential, even despite the fact that every single one thus far has been complete failures and either are co-opted by the establishment or liberals or whatever the fuck. That's what not having any organization does. But my point being is that slowly but surely they're getting a little bit better. Like the Occupy 2008 stuff gave rise to the Bernie bro shit afterwards, which kind of gave, slowly there's more radicalization occurring, and the more both quantitative and qualitative. More people are being radicalized, and more people are being radicalized past just social democrat nonsense, which is good. And this is the fundamental criticism of capitalism kind of taking root. The United States establishment sees the writing on the wall. They realize that this is not good. They don't have a multi-$100 billion budget for all this nonsense for no reason. That's why they're, for example, getting all this AI facial recognition bullshit from Israel that they're importing. The very first targets we're going to see would be the Palestine protests. But subsequently, it's going to be, BLM type moments, other protests for civil liberties. These will be at risk, of course. The left, of course, is going to be the favorite scapegoat, as always. There's going to be some increased surveillance and harassment of them, most likely. But keep in mind that under every single Democrat president, the same progress has been occurring. Right, the Patriot Act was passed by Bush, if I remember right, and no Democrat did a fucking thing about it. Right, every single time increased surveillance. The vast majority, by the way, of surveillance on American citizens has not been passed by Republicans; it's been passed by Democrats. The first major bill was by Clinton, and then it was Obama, and now Biden. Right, it's not gonna.
And Biden and Trump are fighting over who loves cops more, and Biden is Biden who does. It's ridiculous.
Exactly, Biden and Israel. Excuse me, Biden. Cops in Israel. The bestiality of American policy, is that correct? Bestiality? Bestiality is when you fuck animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but still works.
Bestial. Excuse me.
Yeah, the bestial nature. Yeah.
Bestial nature. Thank you. It still works, just like you said. It does work. Fuck it, the bestiality. There you go. The bestiality of American policy, whether it's at home or abroad. It's how pedestrian its interpretation is. For the vast majority of centrist type white Americans, the only ones that quote unquote matter to the ruling establishment, really, life will go on mostly as normal because these changes will not affect this segment of the population in any meaningful way. Only those at the quote-unquote margins of society, no matter how large a group they may be, will face the brunt of these policies. And that's the crux of the matter. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if people are like, oh, no, this is fascism, what would you say before prior to the mid-1960s when there was still segregation in the United States, right? Yeah. You got to remember that this is, first of all, within living memory, number one. And number two, there's millions of people who had to be fucking segregated and dealt a very shit hand of life, not even mentioning the plight of Native Americans in the United States. All of this was happening, but the vast majority of, centrist, well-meaning, quote-unquote, white liberals were just, people who couldn't give a shit less because their lives weren't really affected. There's interviews of in the mid-60s where white liberals were saying, oh yeah, the civil rights, movement is moving along too quickly. The things that, Martin Luther King. The things Martin Luther King is calling for it's too radical. Not even what Malcolm X type rhetoric, which by the way, even then, right? But what Martin Luther King was saying was too much. For the average centrist white liberal, it's the same thing here. But shifting gears, and I kind of will probably end with this. The Biden winning, which is looking increasingly unlikely, but who knows, will not fundamentally change things. Everything Biden promises, he's either stepped down from, modified into like a toothless and pointless policy, or kicked the can down the road to use as fodder for his next election cycle. If you notice, and you can probably do a one-to-one, all the things that he's promised to do from like his previous election cycle, he's basically not done, and he's just rehashed the same shit now. They kind of like bring up the let's just hit the correct points rhetoric right before the election, and then they do fucking nothing about it. And even the quote-unquote right points that they hit on are very neutered, to say the least. Even if by some miracle of God he's elected, it's just going to be another 4 years of the same, just more of the just with more of a respectability veneer, I guess, the shit that liberals love so much. Likewise,
he's giving the same exact policy promises that he did 4 years ago, right? Yeah. And after the assassination attempt on Trump, where basically everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Trump's going to win now. He's a living martyr." People are like, "Okay, Biden, so you're president now. If you want to have a shot, just do that stuff now. Like, give people the promises now, and you'll be reelected. Yeah. That's it." Especially with J.D. Vance on the ticket, everyone's like, "Look at this loser." That like fulfilling some promises and pointing at J.D. Vance and laughing should be enough to get Biden elected. But of course, he's not going to do it.
No, man. And those are the things like, Trump is a strong candidate. I remember I read this tweet, I read this thing somewhere where basically the person said, Trump is not a strong candidate. He's a weak candidate, but the impotence of the Democrats in actually doing anything to not get him elected, literally the smallest fucking thing to get across. If they were to just switch out Biden, really, most likely if they were to switch out Biden with like a sharp talking white guy, like sharply dressed, like witty white guy, they would most likely win the election. I would not be surprised.
Someone who can finish sentences or speak convincingly or make people believe that he's actually going to like give those concessions.
Yeah. And guess what? Do you know the reason they're not doing this? Because in the end, it doesn't matter. All the people who need to be, bought and paid for, all the people who need to be fucking, have their hands greased and whatnot, this shit will happen regardless. The ruling class bets on both horses and wins every fucking time because they own the system. You fucking idiots, please read Marx. Right? So that's why it doesn't matter. That's why Democrats are saying we resigned ourselves to a Trump presidency. Right? Yeah. If it really meant something, then they no, but it doesn't mean anything, right? It's two wings of the same party, right? They just so happen in typical American extravagance, as Nyerere said.
That's such a good quote. That's such a good quote.
My God.
But yeah,
if Biden or whoever other Democrat, if they decide to switch him out, wins basically, the entire idea of 2025, Project 2025, will be postponed till the next eventual Republican presidency, which will happen. It always switches back and forth. And half of the shit that they're going to want to implement will be implemented by the Democrats. 4 years of Biden proves that, the past 4 years of Biden, proves that no matter who's in the White House, nothing fundamentally changes for the working class aside from the most temporary of band-aids, basically. And that's why you need to organize. And I have two final little bits of for you to munch on before we let you go. And that's a tweet from Jill Stein, which is, she ran on the third ticket, I believe, in the United States. And she's pretty chill, not as good as she could be, obviously, but she's at least more reasonable somewhat. She said, because there was like an update recently. It's like, in Detroit, Biden announces his plans for the first 100 days of his presidency, and he's like, make abortion law, make it the law of the land, sign John Lewis voting rights, expand Social Security, end medical debt, all this nonsense, right? And she commented, why didn't Biden do any of this when he had a trifecta, meaning he ruled like the House and the Senate, like he basically had a majority everywhere. Democrats always promise you progressive reforms to get your vote and then govern for the Wall Street bankers and war profiteers who fund them. It's an abusive relationship. Don't let them lie to you again. Which very, very
correct. That's the system. That's the system.
And finally, I'll give a shout out to a fantastic little group called the Hampton Institute, which you should follow. But they had a great little thought this is from years ago, by the way, where they said a 10-day general strike would accomplish more for the working class majority than a century's worth of elections. It will represent an immediate momentum shift by bringing the capitalist behemoth to its knees. Our true power is in our collective labor and not in a voting booth. And that is 10,000% correct. the crux of the matter is you need to organize, you need to join, you need to learn, first of all, educate yourself, read theory, but secondly, organize. Thirdly, have a plan, study your conditions across the different parts of the United States, see what you can get through like local elections. By the way, these general elections at the top level don't fucking matter for shit. But at local level, maybe you can effect some sort of meaningful change, at least at the beginning. But more than this, think past voting, think building dual power structures, think of actually effecting change. If the Chinese could fucking do it in the mess that was pre-1949 China, all right, the Americans in peacetime can fucking do it. Right? You just need a little bit of imagination and some effort and some creativity.
Exactly right. Well done, boys. Well, there you go, audience, our dear listeners, our sweet little piggies. That is Project 2025 in a nutshell. Basically, yes, it's, the rhetoric is scary. The stuff that is contained in the 920-page document is bad. You should absolutely organize against it, but you need to recognize that this is not itself a shift in how the United States works.
Literally nothing new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you just need to, when you're organizing, keep in mind that Biden wins. Oh, we beat Project 2025. No, you didn't.
No.
Project 2025 is nothing new, like Yugopnik said. You need to keep pushing and keep fighting against these little crumbs we're given. Do not become complacent. And we need to really, truly build class consciousness, understand what is at stake, and build a better future that works for all of us, that stops meddling abroad, that stops cutting the ankles of the average worker for the benefit of the ruling class. This is all possible. It's just going to take a lot of work, and there's going to be some reading. I'm sorry, there's going to be some reading. I'm sure Hakeem is hard now.
Exactly right. Fully
right. We've got, if you're not in the Discord yet, you can get access to the Discord through our Patreon. We have an extensive reading list. We've got bonus episodes for you guys as well, if you're interested in that. It really does help support the show. We couldn't do it without you, and we are eternally grateful and deliver small, gentle kisses on your little noses. Mwah. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Go out, get organized, have some fun too, but no just doom and gloom all the time. But do the work. Put in the work. Do your best. Wherever you live in the world, there's no harm in organizing. It can only make things better. So thank you for listening. This has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Yugopnik. Also, try not to miss next time. Jesus fucking Christ. Better aim, please.